All right, in this tutorial, we're going to spend a little bit of time putting in an image sketch of a site plan and beginning to develop that AutoCAD Linework to make it more precise and begin to develop a layout and materials plan here in AutoCAD. Our first step is to take our sketch that we have of the site, to insert it by going to Insert Raster Image Reference, navigating to that file, and inserting it in. Here we're going to use Peyton's sketch of our area and just sort of place it right here into our plan. We're going to go ahead and put this on a layer. We'll sort of select the image frame here. We're going to create a new layer. We'll call it Image Sketch. And we will grab that and put it on that layer in our Properties panel here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn down that sketch by double clicking on the image frame and taking the fade and bumping it up just a little bit. As you can see here, we've got to align this to the plan, so I'm going to move it over a little closer, or at least get it in my view and find two common areas. Now, when I inserted this sketch, it's actually flipped upside down, but I know there are a couple spots that I want to align and scale in here to get it to our particular site. I'm going to pick two corners, this one right up here by the stairs that is going to correspond with this area right here, and I want to pick another area that's pretty far away. We're going to pick the opposite corner of the site right here, which corresponds with this area here. So I'm going to delete out some line work that I already have in here. We're going to click on the image frame and use our Align tool. The first prompt in our command line is to specify a first source point. It's going to be in the image itself. We're just going to click this point. It's going to ask for a destination. So we're going to make sure our ortho is off. Our snaps are on. We'll snap right here where we want to have this land. We'll then grab another point over here, this corner, grab it, and send it to a destination right here. Now it'll allow us to do a third source point, but we're going to stop with 2, because if we stop with 2, it'll allow us to scale it. And to stop at 2, we're just going to hit spacebar. It's going to ask if we want to scale this based on the alignment points. We're going to say yes. You notice that it'll throw it and sort of reorient it into place here. We then just want to click on the frame, right click, draw order, send it back. Now we've got our line work underneath. Now this is just going to guide us as we sort of initially put a few things in here. And if you notice for our plan, it's going to remove these trees. I'm going to go ahead and grab the tree outline, the tree center, layers, and just go ahead and turn those off. So we'll say tree center off and tree outline off, left with just this base line work here. Now the first step is going to be to figure out what are our guidelines that we want to place into this plan that are going to sort of allow us to put in the strong guides that we can then begin to offset and snap to create the rest of the line work. Now you're going to notice in this plan we've got an irregular form that we're working with here, so we're going to have a lot of different guidelines that will sort of dictate this. I'm just going to work from top to bottom here, and we'll start from the right side. I'd like to go a little bit beyond the edge of it. We'll come back and sort of trim that line out. Begin to create a few specific lines in here. Now there's a few areas where we're going to directly offset from these lines. The stairs will be one example. We'll say offset, we'll offset this 12 inches. Maybe that's our tread that we're going to use, although this is at a school. It might be that our risers are going to be something closer to a 4-inch riser. Just because we will have kids here, and if we're using our tread riser ratio, we'll do 2 risers plus 1 tread around 24 to 26 inches. So in that case, we can get away with a 4-inch riser and then maybe have a much larger tread somewhere in the range of 16 to 18 inches. Let's do 18 inch for 1.5 feet. So we'll offset this 18 inches back. And those are pretty good. That gets us up certainly 1 foot, which might be the height of our wall. You can see how it sort of fits into the plan. Maybe we revert back to a 14-inch tread. A few different numbers we could try here. Let's stick with that one for now, and we might mirror that over here as well. Now, some of the other areas we might actually create new lines that are just going to be a little more irregular and sort of flare out to give this design just a little bit more character. At this point, we're going to create a few lines where maybe we start here and then we snap to perpendicular. We can do the same here and snap to perpendicular. I want to test out just a distance here, and we'll probably just sort of get a whole number here. So this is roughly, we have it drawn about 5 feet 8 inches. I'm probably going to just offset that 6 feet. Nice round number. If it's a little far, we could grab both of these lines and sort of move them back, find that right spot for it. But it gives us a whole number for the depth of those stairs right there. You have to do a little bit of trimming, how that's going to work, and sort of reconcile how the bench is going to end. The stairs will continue, so we'll do a couple quick trims and try to get that line work at least a little bit started. We'll come over here, we'll do the same thing. We'll grab this. We can do this line right off here and sort of continue, and we're going to get this a little bit of a funny spot here. So how are we going to deal with that? It could be that we resolve this by moving this line in a little bit. I'm going to offset that, let's say 24 inches, just to see if we can pull in that direction. I'm going to grab a new line just to make sure that I'm snapping to perpendicular. Type PER, and it sort of makes sure that that line will snap perpendicular. It's sitting right on top of the other line, so obviously that was in a good spot to begin with, so we'll just delete that out. We can trim this line off. So we're kind of tightening up our stairs a little bit here. Might do the same thing on this side. Distance, figure out what that is, roughly 12 feet. Might shorten it up to 10. Trim right there. So we've got sort of the first wall in. We've also got a second one that we can continue to do. This one's going to be a little more, a little different. It's going to be a little more traditional in the sense that the wall thickness here, that retaining wall, is going to be you know, a consistent offset. So we're going to create this line work in here. Bring it over there and figure out what the depth of this wall is going to be. So we don't exactly know what material. It's probably going to be concrete with a rebar cage. In that case, we might say we're looking, you know, upwards of 18 inches thick. And we can just offset this 18 inches at all of these spots. Now, you can notice that there's a little bit of overlap here. There are gaps here. That's going to happen right in this area. Now, there's a couple ways to kind of get around that. One is just, hey, let's get the trim tool out. Let's start to trim. Let's extend in a few places. We'll extend that one, extend there, and trim. Another method would be to do a fillet tool, and we set our radius, so F space, R space, and we set the radius to 0, and we can attach those there, and it will even trim these right here. Another method altogether would be to, let's see, undo back to this point when we've got the initial offset. We can just grab this line, say PE for poly edit. We want to turn it into one, yes, and we want to join. We can just join all of these lines together. And now when we click on that, we've got the entire thing. When we offset this, we do it one time, and we've got that entire piece right there set and ready to go. Now this is also, this wall is going to kick here. It's going to turn back this direction. So we're going to offset another 18 inches from this line, and then we're kind of back to figuring out fillet, radius, 0, and kind of clicking that line. We know that wall is probably going to kick back and potentially even die into this last wall right here. So let's go ahead and trim that line, erase this. Got a couple other lines that we'll probably need to trim as well. We need to close this line off. Same thing over here. We'll create a new line, intersection to intersection, trim those pieces. Now this wall, again, is going to kind of kick back, so we're going to offset another 18 inches, just representing the thickness of that wall. Fill it with a radius of 0. We're going to double line this thing because we know that we are going to have a thicker line weight for the walls than we would for the sidewalk. So I want to go ahead and create that line there. We'll come back with our last wall and sort of click this stuff in the same way that we did the last one. So at this point, we're going to start adding in the bench that's going to be attached to this retaining wall right here. And we don't have the bench all the way up to the sidewalk because kids are going to sort of turn this corner and come into this space. We'll probably offset it just a little bit to have that piece probably right about there. But before we get to that point, let's think about the dimensions, the depth of this. We'll have to make a design decision. We might adjust this based on how we design it, design the detail. But for now, what we're going to do is make this, let's say, an 18-inch seat wall that kind of pokes out right here. What we'll also do is grab this line, put it right here. We're going to do a consistent distance right here. So we're kind of putting in and doing the line work here. Try to avoid just arbitrarily drawing in lines. You can see that the offset that we would end up dimensioning as 2 feet 9 3/8 inch, not a number that we want to do, right? So we want to find roughly what we want that to be by drawing it in, and then what we'll do is we'll offset this a whole number. In this case, 3 feet, so we can dimension that and say exactly 3 feet from that edge is where we want to put sort of our bench coming in. We might even, fillet this at 12 inches, something like that, just to kind of round off that corner. Maybe that's a design thing that we're going to put in as we move forward. Might even round off these pieces as this line sort of moves through. Same thing here. We're going to put this line in right here, snap it to perpendicular. I'm going to do a distance from this point to this point, 6 feet 10 inches. Let's just say 7 feet. Don't normally like doing odd numbers, but I'll allow it here. Same idea here to here. Do a quick distance, 3 feet offset. Just typing in 36, so I don't have to type in the foot. Trim that. Don't need this line work F space. We're saving our last radius in there, that 12-inch radius. Just gonna round these off. Might be a nice little detail for the bench right there, even having it in this curve. And one last measurement to kind of get this thing in order. All right, so this is going to be a wooden seat, a wooden bench on top of a concrete seat wall right here. We know that the concrete is just going to be solid, and then we'll have our bench piece on top of it. So we're going to make some modifications in here. We'll use that as sort of our example for how we might finish this out for different areas right here. Again, first step, I'm going to say, what is this offset? How far are we going over this way? 2 feet looks like the right number, so I'm going to offset 24, come this direction, and extend that over. We have our first edge to this. Now, this is going to be wood. I'll have slats that sit on top of the concrete, and it's probably going to overhang just a little bit over this concrete. So what we'll do is have it, we'll decide in our detail what that overlap or overhang is going to be. Just for now, we're going to estimate that that'll be about a 2-inch overhang. We might have a bull nose or something that just makes this a softer edge than just the corner of that. But we'll do a 2-inch overhang on that side. We'll offset 2 inches on this side and extend that line out, and of course trim this overhang right here. Now the size of the board, again, a detail that we're going to have to figure out in a little bit. I'm going to offset 12 inches right here, extend this up, and trim that off right there. Now we could even go as far as to show the little gap in between. How much of a gap are we going to have between our boards? It could be anywhere from, let's say, a 1/4 inch to maybe a 1/2 inch, but let's go with 0.25 is going to be our offset there. And you can see how this is kind of getting set up. Now, is this going to read at the plan view? Depends on your plan. Not sure we're going to see it in our plan view. Maybe we do a detail piece and zoom in, but let's sort of continue it out just for this, for the sake of this. What I'm going to do at this point is we're going to grab these two lines. We're going to say CO for copy, and we're going to grab these lines, we're going to copy them. But we're not going to pick them up anywhere. We're going to pick them up right at the edge of this board here, and we're going to drop them off right at the edge of that outside board. What this is going to do, if we do a distance, it's going to tell us that, all right, we've got this board set at exactly a foot, and with these new copied lines, we're going to do this. We've got it exactly a foot. So a 12-inch board, and we're going to grab both these now, copy, again, pick up right here, drop off right there. We can kind of keep going, might do a few like this, come back, pause, grab a bunch of these again, CO, pick up at this board, drop off right there, keep on going, just like that. Now we're getting to a funny spot here. We're going to have to start to think about how that stuff comes together. In the design, we can have the boards turning back. So what I'm going to do is take these out. We'll keep this last one in. We can use our trim tool. I'll say TR, and we're just going to grab these objects here. Use that fits technique where we click and sort of drag. All right, so this is going to be a fun little intersection here. Let's go ahead and send our 2-inch overhang on this stuff, this direction and this direction, and we're going to have to figure out how this this whole piece kind of fits together. I'll tell you that the way that it's designed, I probably want to consider, all right, do I need to move this line over, extend these stairs over a little bit, sort of move them off the design? I think that might be the right idea, just because I'm going to get some funny cuts in here. Right, this board might come here, up, over, flip back, and kind of cut back this way and become an odd shape. It's going to be bigger than 12-inch wide because we've got to get this little blip in here. It seems like a fun cut. I actually think I'm going to leave it exactly like that. So let me sort of demonstrate how I might resolve this right here. First of all, I want to round this stuff off the same way that we were kind of rounding this one off right here. I think our radius on that was 12 inches. So we're going to go over here, we're going to say F space, R space, 12 for the radius, and kind of round that piece off so that we have not a blunt point on sort of a school playground idea. So I'm going to extend these lines over right here, and we're going to create sort of this funky shaped board right in there. Kind of trim those pieces, trim this, and really that piece in there. So what you can imagine is a board that kind of has this shape that kind of, you know, marries these two designs together as they sort of come across. So kind of finished trimming all of these lines right here. All right, so we've got these boards in here. One thing that you're gonna notice is that we've got that double line happening right here. Well, what is that double line? It's the concrete that sits underneath this wooden bench top. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of breaking that line right there. I'm gonna do the same thing here by trimming it, extending it back so that we can separate these lines. Have this one right here, this one right here, this one, and this one, separate from the ones that are exposed, because I want to change these to a layer. We're going to start creating a bunch of layers here, but I want that to be our sort of concrete bench hidden. So I'm going to create a new one. We'll call it concrete bench hidden, and we are going to put those lines on that layer. So concrete bench hidden. For that layer line type, our default is going to be the continuous line type. We are going to change that to, not the thickness, right here, this line type, we're going to change it to hidden. And it's going to give it that dashed look that's sort of underneath the wood slats here. So you can see I've got that dashed line type. Now, I'm also going to grab all of these boards right here, And let's go right there. And again, just being careful not to select too much, but we'll grab all that. We're going to put this on a new layer. We'll add a new layer in. We'll call it wood slats. And we're going to change that to a yellow color. And we will put this on the wood slats layer. So we continue that for the remaining benches here, but I want to switch to thinking about the paving and remembering that we're not married exactly to what's in our sketch. This isn't a tracing exercise. We can continue to explore. Do we like this coming to a point? Do we want to test out some different ideas? Now is the time to actually do that. And so just for the sake of it, I want to try out just a few different alternatives. So we'll try this, come into here, and still having some ideas. I think I might take this one and really just extend this line here. Now I want these to be two separate lines, so once I extend it, I am going to trim this line right here and then extend it back just so I can have two separate line types. And with this, we might make a new layer. We're going to call it, concrete joints. And because we want that to be a pretty subtle thing, we're going to make it our lightest line type, which would be the red, or at least the thinnest line type that we have. So we'll select all these lines, come back to the layer, drop it on the concrete joints layer. Add in a few more. As we sort of finish this out, we want to begin to distinguish these joints from each other, or these sort of different concrete finishes from each other. There's a lot of different techniques for doing that. I'm going to demonstrate a couple here. The first might be to put in a couple hatches, right? So we're doing a solid hatch right here. This might be one where we want to do a stained concrete. So I'm going to create a new layer. We'll call it stained concrete hatch. And on that stained concrete hatch layer, what we're going to do is we're going to keep it yellow. It really doesn't matter what the color is. We'll just go yellow for now. But we're going to slide all the way over and find the transparency. On that, let me make sure I'm on the right layer, we are going to change that transparency to a much higher number. Now, these hatches are still in the wood slats layer. Once I change them over to the stained concrete layer, you can see that that fade happens a lot, and it especially shows up when I sort of click to pan and hide that image in there. So that's all on the layer. We've got it set to about 78, 89, I don't know. This is really going to be more about printing it out and sort of testing it. Now that might be one approach to hatches. Another, I might do a little stipple hatch for, let's say, this planting bed up here, and I'll show a different technique for that. We'll go ahead and show it now. Let's say that for our planting, we're going to have a couple different plant beds. I'm just going to make one up that. Let's see. Don't want that line. I'm going to switch back to, instead of drawing on the wood slats layer, let's go change it to. Back to layer 0 as our current layer, and I'm going to create some lines that are sort of placeholder lines in here that will be, let's say, oops, I need to send our image back to the back again. Draw order, send it back. This will occasionally happen. It feels like the lines get kind of hidden behind. Sometimes you got to right click on them and say draw order, bring to front, get those back in front. I'm going to do what I did earlier, extend this line right here and create an area where I'm going to have some planting right there. I might have another large planting area that's going to be kind of in this bulk zone here. So really, what am I doing right now? I'm kind of deciding, like, all right, where are the different areas that I'm going to have planting? So we'll have a big mass of planting in the back. We'll have a smaller area here. So just to kind of show a couple shrub techniques. If you're going to show shrub massing, and this might be good for a layout materials plan, we don't need to show the planting plan, the individual plants. You're just kind of showing big masses in general. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use kind of define these areas with these lines, type BO for boundary object. This allows me to kind of click an area, it creates a polyline that wraps around an area just like a hatch, and so it's one big polyline there. I'm going to offset it just like 6 inches in, and then I'm going to type rev cloud. So this is a revision cloud. Allow me to pick an object. I'll hit O space and kind of click this object. Now my settings are already set for these arcs to kind of do this look, which kind of looks shrubby and works. So let me back out and kind of go through what that rev cloud would look like. So we're going to go to rev cloud. You can see down on my command line here, I can do an object, which was what I did last time, but I can also do the arc length. So I'm going to hit A space. Allows me to define what those arc lengths are. So specify the approximate length of an arc. You can do that. We'll say 2 feet. And that way it sort of allows you to kind of click and drag that arc. So mine is set to 2 feet. If I just now have that setting in, rev cloud, O space for object, click on this, and we'll just say yes for reverse direction. It kind of puts the little pointy side. Don't like that. Undo. Let's say rev cloud again. Click on the object, reverse the direction, no, and it's just going to leave it like that. I can erase that initial line, even erase the guidelines that I used to create that. I can then do another boundary object. We'll say BO, pick points, pick that point. BO, pick points, pick that point. So we create these sort of big polylines in here. I'll say rev cloud again. O space for object, click on that. Inverse, no. Notice how I didn't offset it this time and it kind of spills over versus this one. Because I offset it, kind of stays in. So what I'm gonna do is, let's go and turn off the image just so it's not in the way. I'm going to undo, of course I'm undoing the image turn that off again. I'm gonna undo and create that offset again, 6 inches, I think is what it did. Rev cloud, object, click on the object, reverse, nope. And now I can go back and sort of erase that original object. We'll do one more rev cloud area, or maybe we don't. Maybe we just leave this as like one solid hatch. We can just say H space. We can click right in here. We can change this to, let's say, a crosshatch pattern. Change the scale of it to 15. We'll sort of try it out. Still not big enough. We'll change it to, let's try 90. Sure, somewhat better. You can see that you're kind of putting in some of these little placeholders in here. I might change the color. We'll say, let's go with shrub hatch as a layer. Go to our shrub hatch layer and change it down to select a color. We'll use one of our screening layers. It's a really light gray that will come up, and so I'm going to grab this, change it from layer 0 down to shrub hatch, which will put this sort of gray layer right here. Then try a different hatch right here for our shrubs. Maybe this one's going to be more of a stipple. So we could just search for the AR sand hatch, which is that stipple that's going to exist. Maybe the density of that is 5. Let's just see how that looks. Sure, that seems fine. So a couple different ways maybe show planning. It could be, hey, that looks terrible. That's going to really distract from the intricacies of the paving that we're doing. Maybe it's not a good idea. Won't know until we print it out. Let's just sort of run with it and see what we think. Couple more things. I want to put in this hatch right here, and this is where it gets a little tricky. What about these sort of pavers? I don't want to do it right at this point. I'm actually going to pull it back just a little bit and do it right a foot off, come that direction. That again is kind of hiding behind, so I'm going to right click, draw order, bring to front, click on my image frame, right click, draw order, send it back. Don't know what it is back CAD, but sometimes that image wants to jump in front, and so this is going to kind of help us get around it. you're gonna think that, hey, great, let's do a hatch that has that same aggregate hatch that we will use. And I can't remember the name of it. What is it? Aggregate? No. Stone? Not sure. Some type of hatch in here. We'll just have to kind of scan through and find it. That is the gravel hatch. That's what I'm looking for. G-R-A-V, and it's gonna give us this gravel. Yes, this looks great for, you know, when we're doing compacted aggregate underneath things. I don't know if it's the right answer here. Kind of just looks meh. So how are you gonna fix this? Let's get it to the right size. Does this work as sort of like a stone, you know, paver hatch? Maybe. What I would recommend, go online, see if you can download these CAD blocks for pavers from the companies themselves. That'd be a great place to start. Whether it's TechoBlock or Belgard, see if there's a CAD file that you can download that will have this pattern in. Allows you to then kind of, you know, place that pattern in, trim all the excess out, and put that pattern in of the sort of irregular cut stone. But don't be afraid to just get after it and kind of trace a few things in here. If you do that, it's well worth your time to have it looking decent as a site plan than to just dump the hatch in there and just throw your hands up in the air and say, I guess that works. So avoid doing those little things right here. I'm gonna do one last thing. I'm gonna put a hatch in here. Whoa, hatch got away from us. Why does that happen? Sometimes it's closed lines. Sometimes it's if we start the hatch and it's like half off our screen. Let's see if we can figure out why this is working or not working. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say H space again. We're gonna click right here and we're back working again. So you never know. I'm gonna zoom in, kind of jumps in here because of that trim that we did initially. So I'm gonna connect these lines back a little bit and then let's try one more time. Click right there. I'm gonna use this. This is gonna be a concrete hatch, but it's not gonna be the concrete hatch that you think, where we do that concrete. I'm actually gonna make it AR sand, and what we'll do is we'll change the scale to 2 right here. It's kind of that same piece. Maybe this is like a sandblasted finish that we've got on top of this concrete. So think about, you know, how you might vary the textures of this. The best thing to do though with our concrete is to make sure that we're showing our control joints in here. Even on some of these larger slabs, you might need to think about, all right, I can't get away with having, you know, this entire slab by itself without some type of jointing in there. Now the easy thing might just be, all right, well, are we just gonna, you know, create a grid of, you know, control joints like this? Maybe. There might be a time where that makes sense, but I think the better thing is to have the control joints be an extension of the design. So I'm going to click this direction, extend it back across this way, and see if we can get this line to sort of extend out through this hatch, which I might need to turn off. Let's go stained concrete hatch. And too many escapes. EX and extend that line over. That can be another control joint for us, right? So, do I love it? I don't know. Maybe not. You could also think about doing a maybe it does need to be this type of sort of grid pattern for the control joints within that. I don't know. I'm gonna mess with the scale a little bit. Let's make it 100 to see what we're looking at. Still small. Let's make it 500. Go crazy. Does that work? Could. I don't know. Our ground plane's getting pretty busy at this point. We want to be subtle in what we're doing here. Think about how we can make that work as we're sort of finishing out. Again, extension of design is sort of doing this stuff right here. All right, let's spend a little bit of time thinking about the stairs in here. We've got this piece where we've got the concrete wall coming up to it. We've got our stair as it sort of comes up. I think it works in plan right here. We're definitely going to need a detail cut that's going to talk about, you know, is there any relief? Does it cut back? What's that, like the nose of that stair look like in there, and how does it sort of situate itself with the wooden bench in here? We're going to need a long section cut through here, but I think this is going to be a good jump for us getting started thinking about the line work and sort of placing that in there in a really, you know, structured, rigid way. Now let's test out a completely different approach. All right, CO, we're going to copy this out. I just want to have an extra version of it. I'm going to bring it out, sort of turn my ortho on, and I want to type in a number. We're going to say 2,000 feet. I'm just going to send it out all the way out here. Now, why am I doing 2,000 feet exactly? That is because I want to, if I need to copy something over that I forgot, I can do that. But we'll delete out our line work out of here, our wall line work. I want to take a completely different plan and insert that in just to kind of test out another way to put in the image, put in the plan that might be a little different. This time we'll use Simon's, right? And the reason we're going to use Simon's is it's got this kind of curvilinear look to it. So got the plan right here. We're going to double click on this, fade it. We're going to grab it. We're going to put it on the image sketch layer that we already have created, which is off. Excellent. Turn it back on, grab this, AL for align, and we're gonna pick a few points. Fortunately, we have the CAD file underneath this, so I'm gonna actually pick that point so I can really snap to it. We'll come up here, we'll grab another point. I think I'm gonna grab like the corner of that post right there. Land it there. Enter. Do we want to scale it? Absolutely. It seems to get pretty close. Now, with Simon's curvilinear, right? A little different approach to it. But what I love about this and what I love about bringing a curvilinear sketch into it is that we are going to be trying to recreate these arcs. We're not going to hit them exactly, but we're going to do them in as few arcs as possible. I want to use these last two layers right here is sort of the guide for doing it. I'm going to click here, off the page, click, got my ortho on, so I need to turn that off, and we're going to click a spot right here, and we're going to kind of click over here. So 3 clicks for an arc. I'm going to hit spacebar, that repeats our last command, which is an arc. Spacebar again, which plants our first point right where we left off. And then I'm going to kind of click over in here. And what's really great about that technique is that these two arcs, where this one ends and this one begins, it's tangent. And why that's helpful is I'll sort of recreate a version of it where I just kind of eyeball it here, and then I'm going to hit A space, and we're just going to kind of click and just kind of guess, right? No matter how much I try, this line right here, where these come together, you can zoom in, you can kind of see it's a point, and it's really going to show up when you start offsetting this line. So I'm going to offset it, just for the sake of this, 24 inches, this direction and this direction. And you're going to notice that they start to have this cross right here. If I go the other direction, there's going to be a gap in that. Whereas the first ones that we did, when we created that arc, and then we hit spacebar and spacebar again, those lines, when we offset, are going to be tangent. Those points are going to line up there. When we go the opposite direction, they are going to line up here. And it's most noticeable when I click on it and I see that they share a grip. They share a point right there. So this is the technique to do it. Let's try it again. It's going to take a few instances, but we'll A space for arc. Click, 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 spacebar, spacebar to recreate that next one and sort of send it over here. Now, this one's better, maybe, probably not. You're gonna have to try a few different times. We'll do the same thing on this side. A space, here, here, spacebar, spacebar, here, spacebar, spacebar, doing it for this third arc right here. You're gonna get stronger, more legible arcs. When you offset them, they're gonna make more sense. These are going to be the guidelines that we're using to sort of run these arcs, these offsets for the benches, especially for this bench right here, and some of the ground plane line work. As you're starting to put in lines, you can start one right here, and instead of just kind of guesstimating, I can even say, yeah, let's snap to the CEN spacebar. I'm going to go back to this arc right here, and what you're going to notice is that the snap is actually at the top of the screen right here. And so I'm going to click on that arc, and it's going to snap it that direction. I can do this for a whole series of lines right here. Let's grab this endpoint, CEN, and line endpoint CEN is my snap for my other one. And if I can get it to stop being fidgety, there we go. It will also snap to that same center point. You can see that we can get these lines to start to kind of find that same point and create a more precise line work that for our plan. And that's the whole goal, right? So this whole thing is about how can we get the line work to be as precise as possible, that it's an advancement of the sketch. We're not just blindly tracing it, but we're sort of advancing it, trying to get it more refined and precise through this process, whether it's one that's got curves in it, whether it's one that is just a irregular one, or whether we're just turning on ortho and doing a rectilinear design. Whatever the case is, you want to use guidelines that are going to help you focus in and do some line work that is, like I said, precise, known offsets, and something that's a little more rigid, a little more buildable, using whole numbers, not these sort of arbitrary offsets. All right, I think that's enough. This will give us a good jump as we kind of jump into doing some site plans, and we'll kind of pick up here with creating dimensions, creating callouts, section lines, all that good stuff in our next video.